Good evening, it's Mr. Lane. Today we're going to be reading Bootleg by Alex Shearer. Good for you. A man in uniform stood pasting a notice to the boarded up window of a derelict shop. The two schoolboys watched him closely. The man paused for a second to admire his handiwork, then glanced at them with a look of contempt. "That's it for you lot then," he said, and he sounded more pleased about it. "No more chocolate for you once 5 o'clock gets here. So enjoy your sweets while you can, if you've still got any, because you won't be getting any more. That'll teach you." He picked up his brush and the bag of posters. "Crunchy apples to you, comrades," he said. This was now the official greeting of the Good For You party. A simple cheerio was not acceptable. "Juicy oranges to you, citizen," the boys dutifully responded. "Have a banana," the man answered. Then he walked swiftly on to put the last of his posters up on a nearby bus shelter. Not that the posters were really necessary. The only people who didn't know about the deadline were either dead or living on another planet. The boys looked at the notice. It bubbled up here and there where air was trapped under the glue. "All chocolate will be illegal as from 5 p.m. today. Chocolate will not, therefore, be sold to anyone, except on production of the appropriate medical certificate. The sale of sweets or chocolate is otherwise banned and is a criminal offence, punishable by a £5,000 fine and or a possible imprisonment. This is a government order. Issued by the Good For You party, your elected representatives, the party for better health and teeth and for the elimination of obesity and disease due to poor diet," read the poster. The two boys stood and read the sign through. Having done so once, they did so again. "So that's it then," Smudger said. "We've had it. I've got one toffee left and one last chocolate bar. When that's gone, it's all over. How about you?" Huntly searched through his pockets. He came up with a half-sucked sherbet lemon, a piece of licorice, and a chew. He held them out. "That's all," he said. "A lifetime's sweets, and that's all left to show for it. Once I've eaten that, I'm sweetless." "It's a sad day," Smudger said. "Never thought it would happen. Not in a month of Sundays, Mondays, or any other days. Come on, let's find somewhere quiet to eat it all." They went down on the old cemetery, an apt and fitting place, for both Huntly and Smudger felt as if they were going to a funeral. And once there, they buried their chocolate in their stomachs. They ate their last sweets together, sitting solemnly on an old tombstone, munching away with loud, rasping sucks and long, slow chews. They made the sweets last as long as they could. Then they took the wrappers and licked them clean. Instead of throwing the papers into the nearest bin, they folded them up as if they were £10 notes. They smoothed them tidily into small, regular shapes and put them in their pockets. "No more then," Smudger said. "You only get it now when you're ill enough to die, and even then you've got to have a note from your doctor." "I bet they're all round at me mum's surgery right now," Huntly said, for his mother was a GP at the local health centre, "telling her that they're on their last legs and trying to get a chocolate certificate." Which was exactly right. Dr. Carol Hunter was sitting at her desk, facing one of her regular patients. Mrs. Spivey was a rather portly woman, and the expression on her round face was one of acute anxiety. "I've got to have that certificate, doctor," Mrs. Spivey said, her voice managing to sound both pleading and threatening. "I've got to have that medical certificate to let me get chocolate after 5 o'clock, or I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm a registered chocoholic, you know. If I don't get my chocolate, I'll get withdrawal symptoms. I'll probably start tearing my hair out." Her eyes narrowed. "I might even start tearing out other people's hair." Huntly's mother tried to give her a sympathetic smile. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Spivey, but as from 5 o'clock, chocolate will only be available for the terminally ill, unable to absorb any other nourishment. And to the best of my knowledge, apart from your ingrowing toenail, you're not ill at all." Mrs. Spivey's eyes narrowed down to pinpricks. "If I don't get my chocolate, doctor," she said, "I could get very ill and short-tempered and possibly even violent." But Dr. Carol Hunter wasn't a woman to be easily intimidated. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Spivey," she said, "but there's nothing I can do about that. I'm afraid that living without chocolate is something we'll all have to get used to. Peppermint? She preferred a tube of sugar-free mints. Mrs. Spivey took one. Thanks, she said. I suppose it'll help tide me over, but there's no real substitute. There's no real substitute for chocolate at all. The boys moved away from the tombstones and headed back to the road. I don't know what I'm going to do, Smudger groaned. No sweets, no chocolate. I feel like I swallowed a lump of stone, like something inside me has up and died. Your sweet teeth, probably, Huntly said. It's passed on. Probably, Smudger agreed. He sighed a long sigh. Oh well, we just got to struggle on somehow and do the best we can. At least we've tasted chocolate. There's something. But little kids now, who'd normally just be coming up for their first chocolate bar, won't get one. They'll never know anything about a square of milky chocolate melting on your tongue. They're the ones I feel sorry for. But then they won't know what they're missing, Huntly pointed out. But we do, so it's worse for us. We'll be missing it for years. We'll probably need to have therapy, chocolate therapy, for chocolate withdrawal. We might even crack under the strain. The streets were quiet and miserable with drizzle, and there were long faces everywhere, but not all of them were long. If the opposite of long is short, which it plainly is, then there were short faces too. Short, beaming faces, grinning from ear to ear, pleased to see that the Prohibition of Sweets and Chocolate Act was finally becoming law. Frankie Crawley was one of these, as was Myrtle Perkins, both classmates of Smudger and Huntly, but unlike those two friends, staunch members of the Young Pioneers. The Young Pioneers were the junior branch of the Good For You party. Their members swanked and swaggered about, dressed in their nicely starched uniforms, singing Young Pioneer songs or looking out for good deeds to do. The Young Pioneers were notorious for their good deeds. They regularly helped old ladies across the road, whether they wanted to go or not. Things had got to the point where many old ladies would hide in shop doorways when they heard the Young Pioneers coming, afraid they would be helped across the road against their will and not be able to get back again through the traffic. Twice a week after school and every Saturday morning, the Young Pioneers met for drill in the park. They would march in time across the football pitches with a complete disregard for whoever might be playing on them. If there was a game in process, it just had to pause, like traffic at a red light, until the Young Pioneers had crossed. A car drove by. Huntly noticed that it had a sticker in the back window. It read, "Don't blame me, I didn't vote for them." The two boys knew just what that meant. It meant that at the last election, the driver of the car had voted for the Eat, Drink and Do What You Like party, and not for the Good For You party. But he was in the minority. Too many had voted for the Good For You party, thinking that all they intended to do was tidy up the world a bit and make it a better place to live in. Right, that's that for tonight. I hope you stay safe, look after yourselves, and we'll have another story coming tomorrow. Good night.